Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. For some reason, some Karens think that they can decide which person has the right to work in a certain place and which does not. This is the subspecies of Karen that our OP encountered in the first story. So before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Apparently, I can't be a server. This happened a couple of years ago. I was working at my parents' alpine hut, where it's indeed rather unusual to run into a metalhead girl with blue hair and piercings. I just had one on my face back then, though. Yet almost no one makes a fuss about that. Except Karen. I was bartending when she came in, looked at me, and turned around to where my dad was checking some guests in, walked over to him and asked him why that filthy unemployed punker girl would be allowed back there. He answered, "That girl is my daughter. She's doing her job perfectly fine, and if you have such a big problem with her looks, you're free to leave." Karen went pale and left. We didn't see her again. Wait, so she called you unemployed while you were actively working? Karen logic. And our second story. Why can't I use my ripped-up receipt for a return? This was about a year ago, but it's still super vivid in my mind. I was working as a cashier at a craft store, and a lady comes in to return some fabric. I ask her if she has a receipt, to which she pulled out a receipt that was ripped in half. For me to pull up the transaction, I need the barcode on the receipt. Of course, that was not part of the receipt she kept. Cast. OP is me, lady, and manager. OP, ma'am, do you have the other half of the receipt? Lady, no, I ripped them so that they fit in my wallet. OP, okay, well, I don't see the fabric on this half of the receipt, so did you possibly pay with card? I can look up the transaction otherwise. Lady, no, I paid cash. I expect cash back since I have the receipt. OP, ma'am, it doesn't show me on the receipt how much you purchased this fabric for. I can't help you. Lady, no, your policy says if I have a receipt, I can return it. OP, you have half of the receipt. Lady, well, how else would I get it to fit in here? She shows me the little wallet slot she puts them in. I see other torn up receipts. OP, maybe fold them? Lady, get me your manager. At this point, she's whispering under her breath how useless I am. Of course, like I'm the one that tore her receipt. Now, my manager's been working here for over 40 years at this location and seems to get a kick out of dumb Karens. Manager, sorry, I can't return the fabric without a receipt or a credit card to look it up in. Lady, well, how? Manager, maybe you should fold them instead of rip them in half. Lady, excuse me? But your return policy states... Manager, yeah, and for that to happen, you need the full receipt. We don't even know you bought the fabric from here. Lady starts opening the folded fabric to try and see if there's our logo or something on the seamed edge which has another fabric store's name on it. Manager, see, that's why we need the full receipt. This isn't even our fabric. This is store XXXXX. Lady scoffs. Well, hopefully they'll do a better job at returns than you guys. Manager, not if you only have half the receipt, they won't. She was a great manager. I loved her. What do you mean you can't return this? Well, ma'am, it doesn't have a barcode. It has our competitor's website on it. So? And our last story. You didn't get it in writing. So I was a new but qualified recruit in a small team that was working with a very large client and stakeholder in the company. Despite my skills, it was my first real job fresh out of grad school, so I was inexperienced with office politics, contract law, power hierarchies, etc. The clients had given us an almost impossible task to prototype a complex solution to a technical problem that they had. As the only one in the team with the relevant expertise, the burden quickly fell on me to deliver alone, while the others essentially managed. The team leader and effective boss promised me at the beginning that I'd get a bonus worth roughly 30% of the salary on which I was hired. Apparently, this bonus was a direct financial contribution from the big clients themselves. And the wheels were in motion to get this extra cash. Great. But not really, because it was not in writing. Over the next 2 years, however, no such bonus compensation transpired. I would periodically and half-heartedly ask about this bonus during in-person meetings, and I was verbally reassured it was on its way. In hindsight, I would have been more assertive and perhaps sent an email, but again, I was a newbie and unwilling to bite the hand that feeds, so to speak. After these 2 years, the company began to expand business with the client as a direct result of the work that I was on the impossible project. At some point, the clients even present all that hard work of mine at some international conferences, of course claiming it was their intellectual property and proprietary solution. Although the project ownership rightfully and lawfully belonged to them, the lack of acknowledgement left a bitter taste in my mouth. And worse was that money flowing around and both companies were profiting from 2 years of painstaking effort. But there was no bonus in sight. So my work contract was also nearing its end in the 3rd year. Obviously, the company wanted to retain me to continue on this project. I was the only one who knew the ins and outs of it. It'd be a joint employment between the company and client, as I would be tasked with transitioning the project from the company to the client, which would require several more years to do so. I also went through half a year of specialist training with the clients. Only I could do this job for the foreseeable future. For this, I was offered a decent increase in my salary, but that missing bonus was ruining my trust. At a contract negotiation meeting, I asked about it one last time. The team leader and boss said that they had no recollection of such an agreement/offer and that I should have got it in writing. Fair enough. Some lessons are learned the hard way. But the worst realization was that the missing bonus, a measly 30% of the new hire salary for almost 3 years, was now earmarked for an intern to join me on the project. It was almost a 1-to-1 calculation, as the client would sponsor the intern with the funds that were intended bonus for me. It was the last week of the work contract, and Human Resources had invited me to double-check the document before I was to sign it. Of course, given all the time, money, training, and resources invested in me continuing on this project, and my very real eagerness to do it, it was assumed that I would be here for the long haul, and the work contract was a formality. So what happened next is something that I do not recommend that anyone try at home, or work for that matter. It was a moment of impulse from a reckless youth. However, I was feeling particularly vengeful about this missing bonus. My ego had been bruised because I wrongly trusted them to follow through, but I was not clever enough to get the agreement in writing. Well, there was also no written agreement on my end. So I had not yet signed the contract. I carefully double-checked my emails, and there was nothing in writing where I agreed to continue on this project or even this job. In fact, I'd just been verbally enthusiastic about the project during meetings with my boss and the clients. The first new workday rolls around when I'm officially no longer employed at the company or with the clients. I gave no notice and no warnings. I just abandoned them. On the previous day, I'd left my company pager and phone in the office locker. I had to sacrifice a few personal possessions on the office desk. I logged out of the work email/messenger system so they couldn't reach me. I'm not sure how they responded because I ignored and deflected every single communication which came my way for following months. It was bliss knowing that I probably caused this company a major catastrophe for the next few years at least. Of course, I could not predict the consequences that they would face from abrupt and unannounced exit, but I didn't have time to care about them. I had to become selfish, and I had to dip into my savings and relocate and start afresh and anew in another city far away, which was very difficult without references, considering the professional bridge that I had just burnt, hence the not recommending part, but eventually my skills began to speak for themselves. The last I heard about the company was from an ex-colleague as we reconnected on an online professional network a few years ago. Apparently the company still exists, but it's a shell of its former self, as things went horribly south after I left. They lost the big client as I had anticipated. No one else had the skill set to do the work. The clients are still players in the sectors, but I have a great fortune of not having had to interact with them, so far. But I could not have predicted the domino effect that followed in the company. A few more large clients followed soon after because staff had to be reshuffled to do my project, and these other clients felt neglected. Now they're downsizing and in the process of being swallowed by a competitor. From what I gather, the other big casualty of the revenge is my ex-boss developed some substance problem around this time to cope with his stress, triggered in part by not being able to contact me for months on end during a critical time in the company's expansion. Throw in a divorce too because his work stress destroyed the marriage as well. I did feel a little bit guilty when my ex-colleague explained all this, and still do. Is it enough for me to right my wrongs and write an apology or something? Not really, but perhaps I'm wrong here. I'm open to suggestions. Note, this ex-boss has tried to get in touch with me a few more times some years after things went downhill, but I was too busy, so I just continued the ghosting strategy. But anyway, here's to Dumb Butt Incorporated. I hope it was worth the measly bonus that I deserved. I was brought on as a new recruit, and I was a junior who had to lead the project from the get-go. I had to work hard and learn new skills in the hours outside of work, so the fat clients and middle management to reap the rewards. Not on my vengeful watch. The reason that I'm writing this is that it's somewhat cathartic. The company did some crappy things, and so did I. But this missing bonus still eats me from time to time. I could have bought a house, and I could have settled down in that old town. I wouldn't have been displaced for months and living with my head just above water, having to rebuild myself for a good few years following that. Abandoning the project and the job was professional suicide at the time, but my revenge was such that whatever happened, I'd try to get through life without groveling back to that company. Of course, this arrogant a-holery of mine, born from this hatred having not gotten that bonus, still has at least one unwritten chapter. At the current workplace, where I'm also a stakeholder now, I'm now proposing a new version of that old project I began a decade ago and never got a chance to see to completion. It'd be nice to showcase a patent during an international conference attended by those former big clients. That'd be a real bonus. Turns out I guess it's the employees who keep the business running. I guess management forgot that detail. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.